This is such a great question, and this can definitely cause some anxiety as caregivers try to decide both when and how to discuss a CAS diagnosis with their child. Of course, each family will come to this decision based on their family's own set of beliefs and values.
There's really no exact age or time that is the correct time to tell a child about their diagnosis. You want to be thinking about a child's personality, their abilities, their social awareness. These are all factors to consider when we're thinking about whether a child is ready to receive information about a diagnosis. And you can look for the presence of certain signs that the child is ready. Some children actually might ask, "Why can't I do this? What's wrong with me? Why am I different than other people? Why can't I make these sounds?" Again, they're not going to ask it as articulately as that, but they may be giving you signs and asking for questions. And that's one way to know. Again, if your child is not able to articulate a sentence and thoughts, and clearly that is likely, are they nodding? Are they giving you an indication that they understand what you're talking about and might be ready for more information?
But as a clinician who works primarily with families who are right at the beginning of their CAS journey, I typically recommend that caregivers begin to talk about CAS as early as possible. Of course, a very young child will not understand specifically what apraxia is, but at a very young age, children do have an awareness of their struggles, no matter how much we try to not bring their attention to it. They know that perhaps their speech isn't as clear as their peers or siblings, that in some way talking is really difficult, or that they communicate in a way that is different from their siblings or friends. This is why talking about it early is so important and so empowering for your child. By using the word apraxia early on during conversations, you're giving your child a reason and a name for why talking is so hard. You're helping to build a positive self perception and mitigating the sense of shame that might develop if they don't know why they are struggling to talk. How you talk about it will depend on the age of your child. For a young child, say 3 to 4 years of age, I typically recommend using the word apraxia when you're acknowledging their struggles. Saying something like, "I know, buddy, apraxia makes talking really hard for you, but I'm so proud of how hard you're working." Or, "That word was really tricky to say. We'll keep practicing it to help your brain put it together the right way."
I think that you can start explaining CAS as soon as they're starting to go to speech therapy and just try to match your explanation to their understanding at that time. So maybe if they're just starting, it's we're going to go and this speech therapist or speech teacher is going to help you learn to say your words clearly because right now your mouth has a hard time with it.
Other things you can do to sort of know if they're ready when you're on your way to speech therapy, you can offer some information about that person's job. You know, Laura helps people who learn to speak differently. We go there so that Laura can help you learn to be able to share all your important ideas and thoughts and feelings. And you can offer some information and wait to see if there are questions.
It really, of course, depends on the individual child, but I often think about we want to name it to own it. And whenever a child is becoming aware of their difference or that struggle, then I think that can be an appropriate time to explain to them what CAS is at a level that's appropriate for their development and their language and their understanding, what they understand. So, it might be something simple like your mouth needs extra practice to get your words out. But again, just if they're aware of that difference or that struggle, we want to let them know there's nothing wrong with them and that this is why. So again, name it to own it.
Apraxia Kids also has a list of children's books where the main character has apraxia or has difficulty communicating. Reading these books can also help your child to develop a deeper understanding that it isn't their fault and that other children have the same struggles. As your child gets older, say 5, 6, or older, you can begin to be a little bit more specific about what CAS is and how it impacts them. You could say something like, oh man, that word was really tricky. Your apraxia makes it hard for your brain to tell your mouth how to move to say it.
And then as they get older, you can explain a little bit more about how it all works, how the brain makes a plan and doesn't get to the muscles correctly or whatever you think is appropriate. But I would say helping them understand why they are going to speech therapy and why they need to put in some effort and that it's not just playtime is really important from the beginning.
Whether your child is 2 or 8 years old, it is always so important to emphasize all of the strengths that your child has in order to develop that positive self-perception despite having apraxia. CAS is just a part of who your child is.
The rule of thumb with kids about any difficult subject of any kind, and I'm talking big picture, illness, death, some tragedy in a community, is offer a very little bit of information. If they remain attentive, if they ask questions, answer those. Answer what's asked. We adults try to read into, well, what do they mean by that question? Or listen carefully and only answer what they ask. And this really is a good rule of thumb for kids of all ages.
I do think that the conversation about CAS doesn't just happen once. It is really an ongoing discussion with your child as they grow and develop and change. And through building this foundation of understanding at a young age, you're setting the stage for your child to be an advocate for their own needs, which is ultimately our goal and so incredibly important for them to do.